Alrighty, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Michael Lab Show. Before we dive into the multiple topics that I'm going to cover today in this episode, I just want to give a big thank you to everybody who's watching the podcast. Go ahead, like, comment, share on YouTube. If you guys are on Spotify, please just take a second out of your day to go ahead and leave it a 5-star review. If you're on Apple Podcasts, leave it a little written review. If you're listening to it for the first time, give it a chance, give it 10 minutes, and tell me what you think about it. I missed last week. I do apologize. I did say in the last episode, depending on how the job outcome came, it would determine if I uploaded or not. So you guys could probably fill in the gap. I did not get a job. The one job that I felt very, very confident in ended up going through. It fell through. I got contact back from the company, and they decided to move on with another candidate, which, was very upsetting. It was very, I felt like the carpet got pulled out from under my feet. It made me sad. Didn't make me depressed, but it did make me a little bit upset because I knew I was the best candidate. Hopefully this doesn't get back to them, but still I sit here and I feel like I'm the best candidate in terms of what that occupation actually was. I have a lot of experience in fitness and health, so I felt like I could have brought the most to the table, but it didn't end up going through. It is what it is. So I kind of took a week off. I just wasn't in the right mindset to hop on the mic and talk to everybody. That was probably my mistake. I probably should have, but we're here now, and sometimes things just don't work out, and it didn't work out that time. The other job opportunity that I had turned out to be a scam. I guess I could take a second here real quick just to kind of give a warning to people out there that are looking for jobs, especially if you're looking for a job in like the remote field. Apparently, and I should have known this going into it, there's a vast network of scams out there. I'm 26 years old, right? So you would think I would know that, and I do. I keep up with a lot of scams. I don't really respond to anything that's, a text message or a phone call, emails. I don't really do anything like that because I know that the majority of them are just going to be people that are trying to take my information. But this time around, I went ahead and I followed through with it because it was from Indeed, and after I did some research, it turned out just to be an absolute scam. They didn't get any information from me, thank God. But just a warning out there, if you guys are out there looking for remote jobs, just be very wary. The biggest sign that I completely just ignored and missed was when the interview process was going to be done completely by chat. That should have been my warning right there. If you guys are looking for a job and the job is like chat only, don't follow through with it. I know I sound dumb saying that because obviously that should be a dead giveaway, but I follow through with it like an idiot. Everything turned out to be good. If it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. But with that being said, as of right now, you guys are listening to this podcast. It's kind of far into the future because at the time I'm recording this podcast, I only did a first round interview with a different company. By the time this podcast comes out, I should be hired or not hired, so hopefully that goes through. But I did do a different interview for a different position at a different company. It's a sales position, so it's kind of up my alley. I've always been in sales. I've always sold myself in terms of the podcast, in terms of the clothing company, in terms of memberships. So I've always been in sales, so I feel pretty confident in that position, but we'll see. I don't want to get my hopes up too much. You know what they say, the man who's been divorced 3 times can't be mad at the 4th wife. I just made that up. But yeah, so that's kind of that for in terms of why I missed last week. I just wasn't in the right mindset. I kind of I've been in like a weird state lately. Like I've just kind of been not unstable, but just kind of, I don't want to say sad, but just almost emotional. It's just kind of like, this is life, and I've been trying to find my footing, and I think I'm starting to find it. I spent all last week just kind of, I told Taylor, I was like, I'm going to change the way I go about my days. I instead of letting the days just kind of go through, I'm going to become a master of my own day. I'm going to take control. And I feel like I've been doing a better job at that. Before, I was just kind of going about the week and letting the weeks control me. And I didn't feel like I had any power. And I was kind of playing like this, oh, sorry, me role. Like, I'm only door dashing, like this and that. And I kind of became like the victim of my own life. And I think that's not a wise choice to make. So I spent all last Monday making sure and telling myself, like, you are not the victim. Like, you have to take control of your own life. Like, this is it. I'm 26 years old. You know, I kind of had like not a breakdown, but when I turned 26, I didn't want to turn 26 this year. Not that I wanted to kill myself, but like, I just didn't want to get older, you know, because at 25, 24, 23, you kind of feel like you have an excuse. And I've almost, and this is very, very vulnerable here, but I almost feel like I liked having that excuse so no one could be disappointed in me. And I think even me, like, I've lived a life where I haven't wanted, I've been too afraid to like disappoint people. And I've been playing like a victim card, and I'm calling myself out on that. Like, I'm not the victim. I need to take control of my own life. So I changed my mindset last Monday. I looked at myself. I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to be that person that complains about things. I'm not going to be that person who is constantly pointing the finger. And I don't necessarily think I was pointing the finger, but I was waiting for things to happen instead of making things happen. I used to spend so much time on social media. If you guys are following me on any of my social media platforms, I've kind of taken a step back from that. My personal social media platforms. I'm done. Like, I don't want to be on social media all day. It kind of it messes with my head a little bit, and I'm off of it. You know, I'm off of Instagram, I'm off of Twitter, off of Facebook, off of YouTube. In terms of posting, right? I'll still scroll through it here and there, but I just don't think it's good for me. I don't think it's good for anybody to take in too much content. I've obviously still going to be on social media for the time being, obviously for my podcast. And I did start up like a little finance thing. If some people follow me on that, a few of my friends have followed me on it. I didn't connect any of my contacts to it. I haven't promoted it on anything. It's just kind of a fun thing I've always wanted to do with my knowledge with money. Obviously, I'm not like an expert in it, and I put that right there in my bio, like, not financial advice. It's not financial advice, but it's just something that I want to do. You know, I post like one, you know, I try to do one like little short a day, one reel or TikTok a day, but it's just for me. And I just give out like little things that I wish I knew when I was younger, when I was 18, 17, 16, 15 years old, that I knew about money, that maybe somebody who is 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old can run across on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube and be like, huh, maybe I should invest, or maybe I should, you know, apply for a credit card and use credit cards only because I can get 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5% back on my purchases. And why would I use cash if I'm not going to get a discount on it? Or, hey, maybe I should put my money in like a money market instead of a savings account. Or how do I better my credit score? Or like, you know, just, you know, should I refinance my car because my credit score is better? I can get a lower interest rate and save me money. You know, just things like that. And that's kind of what I'm doing with that. I think it's called like Mike Finance Amateur. You can find it on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and they're all going to be shorts. YouTube might be a little bit longer here and there. I might be putting out like if a short does really well and somebody wants me to explain in more detail, I'll go ahead and, you know, make a YouTube channel on it, just explaining more of what I'm actually saying. But this is something I've always wanted to do. And I didn't want to do it all through my podcast. I kind of wanted to be separate from everything. I'm speaking of it now on the podcast, but like if you find the finance thing, unless you click the link in the bio, you're not going to find the podcast. It's just something that I've always been very passionate about money-wise. I've always been passionate about money. And I feel like I have some information I can give to people. Obviously, I'm not a professional. It's not investing advice, but it's just like little tidbits here and there. So that's Mike Finance Amateur. If you want to go ahead and follow that, you can. But yeah, it's like a passion project of mine. I always need to be creating something. I've kind of realized that I'm at my best when I'm creating something, whether it's a podcast or whether it's reading a book even, or whether it's doing like a new venture, that's when I'm at my best. If I'm not like creating something or starting something or in the process of building something, I feel like I kind of get caught up in my emotions and I become very just kind of like a mime, like a cog to the system. And I don't like that. I don't like that feeling. And I think that's why I started the money thing. And that's why I have the podcast. And that's why I've been reading Game of Thrones, because it makes me just feel outside of myself. And I very much enjoy that. Like when I got the idea to start the money thing, the finance page, like my brain chemistry completely changed. I became a completely different person. I became so much happier. I was talking to Taylor. I was like, dude, I'm so excited to have this thing. Like this is my little baby and I get to grow it. And that's what I fall in love with. I love that feeling of like, I don't know what to do, but I'm starting it. And a lot of people don't like that. Like Taylor's one of those people who she doesn't want that. Like she wants stability, and that's fine. That's obviously what I want, but I also like that thrill of not knowing what the future holds for a business or anything like that, and just taking an idea and then turning it into a physical reality, like taking the idea of a podcast and actually doing it. That's a completely different mind state that some people run away from. Sometimes I run recklessly right into the wall. But it's the one thing that I think I feel most passionate about. So I'll run over like little tips here and there. So if you want to follow me on that, you can. I'm not going to put in like the description or anything like that. It's just something that I'm doing and I'm looking forward to doing in the future. But I feel like since I didn't do a podcast last week, it's weird. If you don't do a podcast like every single week, you fall behind on like some news stories. So I've already talked about the spams, like be very, very wary of all that. I guess I want to talk a little bit about, there's a few things I want to talk about. The first thing that happened, which I didn't ever get around to talk about, I think happened like 3 weeks ago. It was the Martha Vineyards thing. The fact that Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis were loading up illegal immigrants, putting them on planes, and then flying into like Martha Vineyards. And it's been happening for a few months now. I mean, I've been telling Taylor every once in a while, like, there's a bunch of immigrants have gotten off at New York City, like in Times Square. They were getting put off. They were being dropped off in D.C., like in front of the White House. And it's one of those things where it's and then anyways that progressed to now DeSantis is flying illegal immigrants to Martha Vineyards, and then flying them to Joe Biden's beach house in Rehoboth Beach, which is where I vacation to, which is just kind of ironic. But when I saw that initially, the entire time I haven't been upset by it. And it's one of those things where, first of all, if you're an illegal immigrant and you come here to this country, where would you rather start your life? And I'm saying this like as objectively as speaking, like, would you rather start your life in Texas, in Arizona, or would you rather start your life like in New York City, Washington, D.C., where there's ample amount of job opportunities? Like, I know just for me, growing up in like the DMV area, D.C., Virginia area, Maryland area, there's a lot of immigrants. There's a lot of people from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, a lot of places in Central and South America. And there's a lot of job opportunities. I've worked with a lot of immigrants, illegal immigrants, and they work really hard. But it's one of those things, there's much more job opportunity in these areas. So, and I know I shouldn't be joking about it, but in a weird way, it's almost like better for the immigrants to get shipped to these places or flown to these places or bussed out to these places, New York City, D.C., because you can start your life so much quicker than just starting it in Texas and Arizona, where you're not really as welcomed because they have much more different viewpoints on immigrants because they have so many immigrants that are coming across the border. But I was really fascinated to see like this knee-jerk reaction that a lot of people, it was coming from the left, it was coming from the Democrats. I even heard words like human trafficking. And it was really fascinating because there wasn't really a outcry when these people were being sent to DC and Times Square. But it's one of those things, again, that it becomes an issue when the rich have to deal with it. And the irony in that is that the same people who live in Martha Vineyards, who have the signs like "hate doesn't live here," "science is real," those signs, nobody's an immigrant, every human is a human, were pissed when illegal immigrants were dropped off in Martha Vineyards. It's almost like the things that you say when reality presents you and you have to stand on your words, a lot of these people lie, and a lot of them, there was a big outcry. And the outcry was they try to take this stance that it's human trafficking, but you're just mad because illegal immigrants are now in your way and you don't like that. But when they're in Texas and Arizona, you can blame, you can freak out on the governments there, and you can say how these people hate illegal immigrants. But when it happens in your backyard, it becomes a huge issue. And look, I'm here to say, like, I have nothing against immigrants coming to this country. And I have, to a point, I almost don't even have an issue with illegal immigrants coming to this country. I mean, some of the best people I've ever worked with have came here illegally. Like, they didn't come here legally. Like, they had to sneak across the border. And I have almost no issue with that. The issue that I have with the whole thing is the way that there is this sense of almost like pretend it's not happening. Because you have Governor Abbott and you have Governor DeSantis and a lot of governors who are on the Mexico border who are saying, like, this is a real issue. We're having a pandemic of illegal immigrants coming to this country. And the issue with that is a lot of them, they're not being vetted, right? So there can be a lot of crime coming across the country. There could be a lot of potential gang members coming across the country. There could be a lot of criminals, a lot of drugs are coming across the country. Like, how do you think fentanyl just keeps on getting in this country? Like, these drugs just keep on flowing through the country. Crime keeps on flowing through the country. Human trafficking keeps flowing through the country. And there's this false sense of security that, like, the Democrats are trying to tell people, like, the border's secure. It's like, it's not secure. I think maybe it was more secure when it was under the Trump administration, but it's not secure. And I'm also somebody who believes, like, the process to become an American citizen should not be as hard as it is. And there's a real issue with, like, if you want to become a Canadian and then come to America to be a citizen, I think that process is a lot easier than being a Mexican coming to this country. And I don't think that should be a thing. I think it should be equally as easy. I don't think it should be that hard to become a legal immigrant. Just in my personal life, I know somebody within the past 5 years who became they became a legal immigrant. And, like, the tests they had to take and the things they had to do, it took a long time. I mean, it took this person, I think, like 5 years, and they went about it the most legal way, right? They checked off all the boxes. They were working full time. They were paying taxes. They were doing everything that an American citizen does, but the process took so long. And if you are somebody and you want to better your life and you want to do better for your family, if you want to give back to your family, if you want to do more than what you're capable of in your own country, but you got to wait 5 to 10 years just to do it the right way, or you can just do it the illegal way and just get here and start working, cash under the table, which one would you choose? So I see it from both sides. I see it from the Democrats' viewpoint, and I also see it from the Republicans' viewpoint. But I don't think anybody's saying they don't want Mexicans here. They don't want Guatemalans here. They don't want Hondurans here. They don't want people from South America, Central America here. I think all of us want them here. I think the issue is the way that the media is portraying it, and the idea that you can just come here illegally. If we could figure out a way to make the system function very well, very efficiently, vet these people, give them the vaccines that they need, the same way that all of us need vaccines to go to school, the same way that you get background checks before you get a certain job. If we can do background checks, if we can vet these people, I don't even need you to know English. Like, some people say, like, you need to learn English. No, you don't need to. Who cares? I don't even care if you know about the country's history. I don't care. Most people my age and younger than me, they don't even know who the first president of the United States of America is. But the whole Martha Vineyards thing was I think it exposed the hypocrisy that we have in this country, that illegal immigrants, the border is super, super secure, and there's not an issue. And the way that the governors of Florida and Texas are dealing with it is in a very, very anti-humane way. But when they show up in your front yard, in your backyard, in your multi-million-dollar compounds, it becomes an issue. And I think that right there is more than just an illegal immigrant issue. In this country right now, we're having a big issue with a lot of people who have a lot of money. I say it all the time. Some of the most racist places, sexist places, homophobic places I've been to, not homophobic, but definitely racist, are places that have the vast amount of money. I was listening to a podcast with Tom Segura, Christina Pazitsky, and they had the guy on Google who kind of got like dragged through the mud a couple months back when he came out, and he said like Google has sentient, like they have, basically Google's alive. They have an AI that's alive. I think it was called Lambda. And the reason why he got dragged through the mud is because Google didn't want that to come out. Like they were just, anyways. But what the guy was saying is that Silicon Valley in that area is like the most racist part of the country. And this guy grew up in Louisiana. And he was saying that when he lived in Louisiana, there was racism, but it wasn't the same where it is in like San Francisco. Because I think what ends up happening is a lot of places, I see it where I live, a lot of places where there's poverty and there's people struggling, there's like an acceptance that all of us are poor and then we have race. But in like those really, really, really rich areas, they almost feel like the really, really wealthy white people, there's almost a sense of like, I'm better than. And I think that kind of racism is like the worst kind of racism because you look at people of different cultures as different than you. Whereas I think in poverty, in poor areas where there's poor whites, poor blacks, poor Hispanics, poor everybody, we're all in this together. And I see it a lot. Like when I go back home, you can see like this segregation, and it's there. Like where I grew up back, like when I first grew up, I grew up in an area that was very diverse. I mean, I had best friends that were black. I had best friends that were from Afghanistan. I had best friends that were Indian. I had best friends that were like Hispanics. And that was the culture that I grew up in, right? I remember going over to dinner at my friend's house, Farad, who was an Afghan, and I remember having their food. And I remember going to my best friend Anthony's house, he was my black friend, and we hung out all the time. And I remember hanging out with a bunch of my Hispanic friends, and it was just, there's all we knew. And then I remember I learned racism. I learned what it was when I moved into an upper class area. When my family and all of us moved out of Bowie, which is where I lived, to Anne Arundel County in Davisonville. Because when I moved here, I was so confused when I went to school, and there was like 2 or 3 black kids, and there was like 2 or 3 Mexicans, and there was like 2 or 3 Indians, and they all were like in their own little group, and the rest were white people. And that didn't make sense to me because we moved to a richer area. Because the issue in this country, there's definitely racism for sure, but there's a lot of separation of wealth, and wealth tends to be in the hands of those who are white, and that tends to be a thing because white people have been here a long time, and there's a generational wealth gap in this country that separates a lot of races. And I remember just like going over my friends' houses, and there was just this air of like, I'm better than. And I don't know what that stems from. I don't really know why that's there, but it's there. And you almost get this sense when you see the Martha Vineyard thing of like, that's happening, where it's like these really wealthy white people feel like they're better than. And they want to complain and bitch about things all the time. And they want to say, you're this and you're that. But when it's in their front yard, they freak out. And I thought that was one of the situations where it could be like studied in school. Like you protest and you protest and you protest until you experience it firsthand, and then you hide, and then you're pissed, and then you want the government to come in, you want the police to come in, you want these people out of your backyard. I don't know. It's weird. You see, it's hypocrisy, right? You see a lot of hypocrisy these days. The other thing that I want to, by the way, football started, which is really exciting. Every year that football starts, I don't really get into it too much. Like, I'm not like a big football guy. What tends to happen is I usually work. This is like the first year I haven't worked during football. So I usually work during football. And because of that, I never really get to watch the games. And this year, Taylor and I have pretty much like decided that Sundays are going to be football days. And I'm a big Packers fan. And it's been nice. Like, I think like the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks now, at the time of this episode, I've just been watching football. It's been really nice to just kind of enjoy Sundays and do nothing. Like, it's something that I've always been somebody who didn't want to be that person because I thought that was like lazy. But as I get older, I'm starting to realize like I need to find balance in my life. Like, it's not all about like just hustling and hustling. Like, I really like when I worked at the gym, there was a friend of mine who was very much like a hard worker, like a bad mother effer. And he crushed it when he was at work. When he was working, he was dialed in. There was no wasted time. There was no wasted minute. But when he wasn't working, he wasn't working. He was off, right? I mean, yeah, he would make phone calls into work, make phone calls to the owner, or talk to people like that. But when he wasn't working, it was his time. And I've always taken that stance. Like, if I'm not working, I'm nothing. And I'm trying to find this new place in my life where, like, I allow myself to feel just hang out. Like, just enjoy the day. Like, take a walk outside, go running, just enjoy the day. And I think I'm finally getting to that point in my life where I'm like starting to just enjoy the days. But it's difficult. Like, it's hard for me, but it's something that I think I need to learn, especially the older I get. The older I get, the more I need to just kind of realize, like, this is my life. I need to just enjoy and just hang out. But I remember after the Packers played on Friday or on Sunday, last Sunday, 2 Sundays ago, I watched 60 Minutes, just like 10 minutes of it with Joe Biden. And right now, the whole world is kind of in shambles, right? Like, we're at a situation right now. We're at a pivotal point in the history of the world, definitely a history of the United States, in a point where there could be a lot of, depending on who makes the move, the future of humanity could be reshaped forever. And I'm not like speaking like a hyperbolic way. Like, I mean that wholeheartedly, with Russia going in and just taking out Ukraine, and then Ukraine pushing against Russia. And then Joe Biden is on 60 Minutes. Oh, and then you had the president of Xi Jinping of China, who's flying to Kazakhstan with Vladimir Putin, and they're having a one-on-one conversation. And you have Russia, who controls all the oil into Europe. And you have Europe that has rising inflation at crazy record highs. And then you have the United States. Our economy is not doing well, no matter how much propaganda you hear out there in the media. I think that's the one thing that's been bothering me the most. And one of the reasons why I like abandoned ship off social media is like the propaganda, the nonsense that you're hearing that's coming from our government. Make sure that light's working. In terms of like how strong our economy is, it's not true. Like, it's just not true. Inflation in this country has been at a steady 8.5% for the last 3 months. Unemployment is starting to rise again. Things are incredibly expensive. The interest rates are going through the roof. The Fed just raised it by 75 basis points. They're going to raise it. They're probably going to hold it at 4.25% throughout 2023. There's way too much money in the market, and things are getting way too expensive. Oil's going to go right back up. But meanwhile, if you watch the news, they're placing all this blame on Russia. Instead of accepting, like, yeah, we put too much money in the system. We decided way too late to start pumping money out of the system. We've been late on raising interest rates. And yes, the economy is going to suffer for a little bit. But instead, we Americans have to deal with our government, again, running for 2022. Like, we have midterms coming up. I've been watching the NFL, and you already see it. The NFL is already promoting people to go out there and get ready to vote, and your vote matters. And you have Lizzo up there saying, like, your vote matters. Like, it does matter, but, like, there's this sense of, I don't know what it is. I don't know. I don't know what bothers me so much, but I don't like this idea that we're running the country off of our predecessor, Donald Trump. You hear it all the time with like Joe Biden. He's always talking about Donald Trump nonstop. And he says these things like this is the strongest the economy's ever been. And like, this is the fastest job growth we've ever had. And like the gas prices have come down quicker than ever before. It's like, that's complete BS. Like the gas prices have came down from $5 to $4. Yeah, that's a huge jump down. Don't get me wrong. That's a big jump down. That's a 20% decrease in a month and a half. But 2 years ago, they were $2. And so it's still up 100%. And then the job growth, yes, of course jobs have been added. All you had to do was open the economy. The one thing I do like about Joe Biden is he is an old school, like bad mother effer. He does not, he's like a renegade like Donald Trump in a lot of ways. Donald Trump and Joe Biden are very similar. And I know you probably disagree with me, but like Joe Biden and Donald Trump are the same person. In that interview in 60 Minutes, the interviewer asked him straight up, what would you do to Taiwan? Are you willing to defend them if China enters their territory? And Joe Biden was like, yes. And then immediately they had to cut the interview and they had a brief 60 minutes like, no, that's not exactly what we said. But Joe Biden's like, yeah, that's what we'll do. He said the same thing with Russia. He said if Russia decides to use nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, America will attack. That's what he said. He doesn't listen to like the people that work for him. Donald Trump did not listen to the people that worked for him. He's the loose cannon. You got to remember, Joe Biden is 82 years old. This dude has been in the system forever. Like he's been a senator forever. Like he is a savage of a human being. He's a politician. He's part of the mob. Like this dude he's grown up in the mob. He's lost a son. He had his freaking head was cut open. Like he's had full-on brain surgery. At the end of the day, Joe Biden is a savage and he'll do whatever it takes. And when they were asking him questions like about like the economy, he's just like anybody else. He just lies and he does not care. And like and when they asked him about the pandemic, that was my favorite. That's when I was like, you know what? He's got my vote. When they were walking through the car show, or not the car show, but they were showing off like electric cars, of course at Ford, because Ford's been around for 100 years. Like you could go to Tesla, but let's not do that because Elon Musk is an issue and we don't like to support him, even though he's an immigrant from Africa, but we don't like him because he speaks his mind. But when they were walking through the showroom, the guy was like, is a pandemic, like, is COVID still an issue? And Joe Biden goes like, no. And he literally says the pandemic is over. Do you see anybody in here with a mask on? And that when he said that, I was like, damn, this dude's a loose cannon. Like he says whatever the hell he wants to say. A lot of Republicans will, they will say like Joe Biden is just a speaking head for the party. And I agree. Yeah, he is. But at the end of the day, he's also just a dude who has a little bit of control, but not that much control. Like at the end of the day, politics are all about votes and money. And the president can only do so much. And clearly, if you haven't seen during this administration, that they were just looking for somebody to be a Democrat, basically to just say, okay, every time a law got passed. And that's what they've been doing. I do worry about the future of this country in terms of money-wise. I read a book by Ray Dalio basically kind of predicting this, how China is going to be the next superpower, how the U.S. dollar is not going to be the main source of, it's not going to be the gold standard of money in this world, and China will be that, and that's a different world. A world where China is the police of the world is I don't know if it's a world I want to live in. And obviously, America has a lot of issues. We've started wars with countries for no reason. Iraq. We went to war with them because of weapons of mass destruction under George Bush, even though that was never true. They never had nuclear weapons. We bomb the crap out of countries like Syria because we can. We have our fair share of issues. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, what we still have in this country is freedom. And I think that's the reason. And I don't think I don't think you can argue that, because there's a reason why there's so many illegal immigrants coming to this country. Because at the end of the day, it's still America. And people want to live here more than any other place in the world. Because we're powerful. And you have that ability to move around and do what you want when you want. And that's something I think we kind of need to get back on in this country. We need to start reminding ourselves that, like, we're America and we're the best. And I know. Call me a patriot. Call me naive. Call me whatever you want. But I'm somebody who, I believe that. I also believe that Joe Biden is my new favorite president, because he pissed off the world when he said the pandemic is over. He said the pandemic is over, and immediately, right when he said that, people came after him hard. They came after that man so hard. Epidemiologists across the world were like freaking out. Like, I don't know what it is with like the sense of like people just want this thing to continue, but like why? Like, why do you want this thing to continue? Like, there's so many boosters out there now. Like, once I don't know if I really want to get into it, but like right when I saw like my mom and my sister get sick and they were totally fine, I was done. Like, I've been done with COVID for like the last 2 years. I really have. March, I was done June of 2020. I checked out. Like, mentally, I was toasted. I didn't care anymore. I didn't care, call me irresponsible, call me what you will, but I just really didn't care anymore. One thing that I have been doing again lately, I'm trying to get back into shape. I really am. I'm trying to get back into shape. This year's been a struggle for me with my wages, because I've been so stressed about like jobs and stuff, like searching for a job, finding a job, money stuff. First year I've ever lived on my own, so it's kind of like, it's been stressful. But I've been running again lately, and I've ran for like the last month. Every single day, I took one day off. I've been doing like 20 to 40 minutes, 20 to 45 minutes, and it is a game changer, man. I'm not weighing myself. I'm just eating meat. I'm eating rice. I'm eating fruits. I'm eating like little protein bars here and there. I'm just trying to feel better. I'm just trying to feel better about my body. I'm just trying to run, because that when I get off the treadmill, when I'm done running outside and I come inside, and the world just seems so much more calmer. Like, I feel like I can just control my emotions so much better when I run. And on top of that, it's a great way for me to drop weight. This time around, I don't want to become like a skinny little rail, because what ends up happening for me a lot is when I start losing weight, especially if I'm running, I lose weight quickly. And yes, I get shredded, but I look like a patient who has like AIDS, man, like in the 90s. Like, I look bad. I look skinny. I look gaunt. Like, I can't even get like an erection anymore. Like, my sex drive goes down. So this time around, I'm trying to eat a lot. When you're running a lot, it's hard to eat a lot. You're very hungry, but you just kind of, I don't know, like in my head, I'm like, I want to stay light so I can run farther and farther and farther. But this time around, I'm just starting out like 20 to 40 minutes a day, like 2.5 to 4.5 miles a day. Nothing crazy. I'm not going to try to go for a marathon. I'm not going to try to go for like half marathons. I'm just going to run on my own pace, enjoy it, not go crazy, just relax, have fun with it. And I think it's going to put me in a completely different mind state. And I think if one of these jobs go through and I could start making more money, I feel like I'll be in a better place. And that's all I need. And I've been working really hard, and I think my time's coming. Taylor and I are finally looking at a dog. We're looking at getting a dog here very soon. So, sometimes this first year living on my own has been fun. I've enjoyed every moment of it. Things obviously didn't line up the way that they were supposed to. I didn't get a job. I mean, I had a job. I quit the job. I didn't like the job. I didn't like the industry. I just didn't like it. It gave me an ick feeling in my mouth. But you learn. I've learned a lot of lessons this year for sure. I finally got healthcare at 26. I got kicked off my parents. So I went ahead and got healthcare, and that was a huge relief to me. Taylor, her birthday's coming up. I have an amazing gift for her. She has no idea what it is. I've told my family, but I haven't told her. I haven't told her family either. But I have an amazing gift for her. I'm very excited for that. I can't wait to talk about it after her birthday, which is October 2nd. But I just wanted to hop on here just today to reconnect with you guys. Nothing crazy, like a 40-minute episode. I just wanted to reconnect and talk to everybody and just see how everyone's doing out there. Just let them know that this podcast is not ending. I just took a week off because I was in a weird place. I had to get out of that weird place. I had to get out of the funk. But I feel like I'm out of the funk now. And I feel like I can get back on the horse and just keep on moving. Just keep on moving. Hopefully sooner than later, a job will go through. I'll be employed. I'll be making decent money. And Taylor and I can do what we want. We can move where we want, whatever. I'm excited about that. And that's going to take time, but that's okay. I'm hoping that within the year or so, we'll be able to, because basically we want to set up a life where we can live where we want to live and have a remote position. That's kind of what we're looking for. She already has that. I'm in the process of getting that. And once we have that, I think things are going to be good. But in the meantime, you guys can sit right here every Tuesday, 6 a.m., YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, anywhere you get a podcast, and you can listen to me speak because that's what everybody wants to do. Everybody wants to hear what I have to say. Or nobody. Just kidding. Tens of thousands of people apparently want to hear it. I'm just going to plug again one more time. If you guys want to follow me on my finance page, it's Mike Finance. Mike Finance Amateur. Just put it in TikTok, YouTube, Apple, or Instagram. You'll find me on there. But until that, guys, I hope you enjoyed your September. Next time I see you, I believe it's going to be October, the year of the pumpkin, the season of the pumpkin. I can't believe we're freaking in the final 25% of the year, which is nuts to think about. It's been a wild year. It's been a year for the ages. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you guys next week. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Happy September. I'll see you guys in October. Peace out.